Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, peoples.
Did
I hear urethra?
Yeah, we were talking about
We're talking about Aretha Franklin.
Urethra Franklin.
We're talking about the joys of prostate aging.
Okay.
Yes.
It's one of those things, like, what kind of malevolent designer wrapped the fucking prostate around the hose you need to pee?
And there's a way that they can fix things like that, but I hear it's extraordinarily painful.
What, like sounding?
Yes, I do want seeds for GMO purple tomatoes, thank you.
Oh, somebody has
I do have a garden in the backyard.
There's no bananas in the basement.
No more.
Email us and we'll send you an address to send them to.
Do that, please. Thank you so much. Okay, today is... Hello, hold on, stop.
It's
Oh, I
Wednesday.
forgot to put the topics, but whatever. Today is... What is it?
February.
February 11th, 2026. It's a Wednesday. Today we're going to talk about cutting down trees
Yep.
to save the world or something. JE is connected to more people. Let's not say the full name, maybe. Pyramids.
Some more crap about
some more
pyramids.
crap. Poe or no will do, and some other weird parasite stuff. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, how are you guys doing? How's everybody doing?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Doing good, enjoying the Olympics,
Mhm.
Oh yeah, the Olympics are
and
on.
and the politics are getting crazier than ever.
Well, as they should.
Wow.
I mean, my wife and I watched all the way to the finals of the mixed couple curling
Oh yeah.
tournament, and it was fun. Curling is actually very. It's
cool.
basically shuffleboard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On ice,
Yeah.
but it's very strategic, and the skill is pretty amazing. You know,
Oh, it really is.
America got the silver. They were in the last bout with Sweden. And Sweden won the gold on the very last stone.
The very last one.
Yeah.
Damn.
But you know that's how it was going to. The last one is always determines that bout. You know what I mean? Whoever goes last,
Oh, okay.
because you're basically the whole game is setting up for that last, stone. You know what I mean?
Right.
'Cause
But can't it be like they have no chance to win anyway? So they.
all they needed was to get 2 points, which is hard. Like most of the time, if the other team is playing well, you set it up so that whoever goes last is going to get 1 point, but you haven't allowed them to get any other points.
Right.
You're trying
okay.
to limit them to 1 point, but they were able to get 2 points at the end, and then that's what won them the
nice.
goal. It was, yeah.
And this is the one where the people sweep too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's,
Yeah.
That's incredible that
Yeah.
they know how to do that stuff.
It's like bocce ball, but
It's bocce ball on
On
ice.
ice.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, but the precision that the
Yeah.
players
It's
have is
amazing.
It's
ridiculous.
bocce ball. If you could mow the grass in front of the ball, the bocce ball, to kind of
No, what
guide
else I,
it.
I didn't realize until I was watching this time is that the other team can sweep too. So, in other words,
what?
oh really?
I mean,
Like
the
off.
the other team can't sweep. The team that's going can sweep the other team's pucks.
What? I didn't know
So,
that.
so let's say you're trying to knock a puck
Right,
out.
okay.
The puck you're knocking out, you could sweep in front of that to make it go further to get it out of
Whoa.
the zone. You know? what I mean?
Nice. I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah.
That makes sense though.
Yeah.
That's your turn.
Yeah.
But they can they sweep in front of the thrown
Yeah.
one? Wow.
Oh
So
yeah,
that-
that's the main
So
sweeping.
what, like you have people sweeping pro and people sweeping con?
No, I think it's just that there's two people on the team.
If it's your turn, you could sweep anything involved in your turn.
Oh, I
Yes,
got you.
You're-
right,
you're
including the
stones
other
or their
team's
stones.
pucks that you were trying to knock out of the
Gotcha.
circle.
I got
right.
you. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it a puck or a stone?
Stone.
Okay.
They're made of granite.
Do they have a woman's version of it, or is it all together?
Yeah, no, there's men's, women's, and mixed doubles.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
The freakiest thing I've seen so far in the Olympics is the team skating, speed skating,
Team speed skating.
So they're going around,
Yeah.
and as they're going around, the teammates are inside that concentric oval, and they're skating next to their partner on the other team. So if you're in first place, their partner is in first place on the inside, and they're just doing that so they get set up for when they got to swap in. They swap in. They exit the small oval and they go into the main racing oval. They got to scoot in to get right behind their guy.
Yeah.
And they sometimes they get in front of.
Is that the equivalent of passing the baton when they make that
Yes, it's the
switch
equivalent
over?
of passing the baton.
Yeah.
But it's visual chaos. It's like how they must. That's a technique. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a lot of practice. So they're not hitting each other. They're just swirling around. It was pretty intense.
I bet you they have a lot of accidents and stuff just getting up to skill, you know?
Yeah, that's that specific skill of getting to the baton
Yeah.
section. And I like when they go behind the new person, they give them a push. They give them a push to get them. And sometimes those pushes are really strong. I wonder if as part of their skating training, do they need to work out their triceps and chest so they can go give better pushes?
I wonder how fast they're going.
Are we going to see a quint this Olympics?
Oh, probably not. But the one
But it's
American.
not impossible.
No.
What's a quint?
So it's a leap in figure skating where you're doing 5 spins.
5 full spins.
5 full spins. So well, it depends how full it is. But the quads are state of the art now. Everyone.
But even the quad guy, he's on the quad axle, right? In
Yes.
competition.
Yeah. So he's done the
Which is
hardest
4
one.
and a half, basically.
Basically, right, 4.5. So I heard he's done 5. He's done the quint in practice, but and how cool would it be if he actually can do it? But it would be stupid for him to do it because he's so technically superior than the other skaters that he doesn't need to be even more technically superior. So, but the physics of it are interesting, and you might hear about that on the next podcast.
You know, if he tries to do it, right, and he fails,
Then-
it's probably a lot worse than if he succeeds.
Right, exactly, Jay. It's not worth the risk. It's not like he's pulling quints as often as he can pull quads.
Well, it depends on what you'd consider the return. In terms of just winning, if he pulls it off, he makes history. He doesn't just win a gold. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
He-
that's true.
Right.
Works for Tony Hawk. 1080, right? Didn't he do a 1080?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was a big deal.
That was a big
you know?
deal. All right, let's see. What else is going on in the world? Should we talk about some things that are happening in the healthcare arena with measles and?
Someone
some
said Hawk
guy-
did a 900, not a 1080.
I thought he did. Didn't somebody? Oh, he did do it 900. Didn't they do a 1080? Some has since been done a few years ago. Okay, so the 1080 has been. I misremembered. Although I think Tony Hawk recently did a 900 again, or maybe a 1080 at his age now, which is like 40 some 50.
That's a good question. Party Saurus 12.
Tony's famous 1080.
The person says, are athletes in another 100 years going to put record breakers of today to shame?
Yes,
And
I'd say yes and no.
Yeah.
First off, are they going to be doing baseline humans? If not, then of course everyone will will put us to shame. If it's still like baseline unaugmented humans in 100 years, I think some records will be dramatically larger, but a lot of them, I mean, we're getting so close to the wall with training. I mean, how much better can we get?
The limits of human physiology.
Yeah,
and
human
anatomy.
physiology and physics, biomechanics. So, so I think some will be
But
dramatically.
did they say that 50 years ago?
Probably.
Some records are just getting blown away from. You compare. I remember, and not just like records, but also just the overall ability. I remember watching. You guys remember Nadia Comaneci
Yeah.
from the '80s, right? She was like the pinnacle of
Yeah.
gymnastics and was, both straight tens. I watched some of her routines recently, and they're like crap compared to what they're doing today.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
seriously, it's like, oh my God, that was nothing compared to what today's gymnastics are doing. She would be demolished. She wouldn't even wouldn't even be at the Olympics, given that level of skill. It's the sport has evolved so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty universal, right? I mean, there is a theoretical limit to what regular people could do, non-augmented people.
Mhm.
But, nutrition and training techniques and all that stuff, of course, keep getting more and more nuanced and, so who the hell knows? It's a really hard question.
It's an interesting question, though.
I mean, the whole 4-minute mile story.
Yeah.
Right, it was psychological.
It was all psychological. As soon as someone broke
As soon as
it,
Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, other people did it as
Yeah.
well. The psychological impediment was no longer there. And now, I mean, what's it down to now? I don't know.
Well, that's advances to in nipple tape, right? Isn't that that has helped you run a 4-minute mile?
it all comes back to that.
It all comes down to the nipple tape. Okay. Anyway.
Years ago, somebody asked, what are the enhanced Olympics? I read a short story about the Open Technology Olympics, where they basically allowed all genetic engineering and everything, and they were just describing all the heats. Like there was like the swimmer who had no bones in his feet, so he could.
Oh, God.
And 8-foot tall basketball players
That's
and just
awesome.
crazy shit.
It's funny. I read a short story that was the opposite of that. It was probably 80 or 100 years in the future, and there was a still baseline. There was a augmented Olympics, but there was baseline
Yeah.
Olympics, and this guy was on track to beat a record that hadn't been beaten in decades because they're so close to the wall. Records drop so rarely because they're so close to the training wall, and of course their methodologies of training and nutrition and everything were super advanced. This guy literally had an avatar, a computer-generated avatar of himself, which was the ideal that he was trying to, he had ideal nutrition, ideal training, and his training was so off the hook that he really was about as close to that wall as you could possibly get, given advanced technology. It was an interesting story, and it was interesting because after he broke the record, people were approaching him and saying, "Hey, join our community of augmented people," because he was considering actually getting augmented after breaking that record. And there was I remember some guy flew down because he had wings genetically grafted onto him, and he's like, join our aviary community or
Oh my
something.
God.
But it was just a fun short story.
Would you have wings grafted onto you if you could fly
They,
with them?
they wouldn't work. The muscle.
I said if you could fly
he
with
did
them.
say if.
No. Who wants to sleep with wings on their back?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like fun. I'd rather just use.
Wait, you don't sleep on your stomach? Like a normal person?
Could you imagine having gigantic ass wings?
You have to weigh all of the downsides versus fucking flying.
Well, it's not like I would come out to your house and fly here today.
Why not?
It's freezing out.
Put on a sweater.
What's it for?
Yeah.
Nope.
That's a hell of a
Also,
workout.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it
about
would
it.
change the
Cool.
physiology too much. Imagine just the muscles that you need to be grafted on.
Yeah, it would be
or
huge.
It would be.
I think you need a cage around you too. It's not the flying, it's the stopping into
The landing.
buildings, Yeah.
And then what about lightening your bones? Right, you
right.
could lighten your bones to make yourself. You have to weigh as little as possible. It'd be too dramatic. I'd rather get a nice jetpack.
Yeah. No, it's more than just putting wings on your back.
Absolutely.
It would be very implausible. But you know that the hollow bones of birds is not just about weight. You know what else?
Yeah.
Other
Is it
function
about
they serve?
is it about efficiency in terms of of VO2 max in terms of
Yes. Yeah, it's oxygen delivery because
Yeah.
they need high oxygen delivery. So birds actually I did a TikTok on this a few weeks ago. They actually have a double respiratory cycle, right? Because they have like a deep lung, so that
Yeah.
they bring in air, and then that air exchanges oxygen, then it goes to like the deeper tissue and exchanges oxygen, then gets exhaled. And that includes in their bones. They're exchanging oxygen in their
Nice.
bones.
Yeah, that's cool.
So they otherwise they couldn't. The intense. I mean, think of a hummingbird. I mean,
Oh my God, 200 times
they
a
could not
minute?
produce that much energy unless they, had super efficient respiratory system.
Yeah.
Thank you for the obscure skateboarding knowledge, Christian. They were commenting in the chat about our Tony Hawk. Me bringing that up. Anyway, all right. So let's move on to some stuff.
Yeah.
Let's do this video right here, which I don't. You know what? Let's see if it's a Poe or no. I do think it might be in the Poe range, but you tell me, and I don't have it loaded, and so we're taking some extra time, and I'm just delaying while I'm getting it set up because it wasn't set up properly. Okay, here we go. Okay, boom. Here, this guy. I don't know if you watched this TikTok, Bob. What happened?
Did you send it? One of the ones you sent?
I think so. I think Bob might be the star knower on this one. Here we go.
Yeah, I think I saw this one.
Every famous person you've seen at a televised funeral. Scream. Sorry to disappoint you, but every famous person you've seen at a televised funeral wasn't the real famous person. I get paid to lie down, motionless, while strangers cry, scream, and occasionally try to steal the cufflinks. Usually the rule book is 5 pages long. For this specific family, the manual I had received had 50. I was in the prep room, the mansion's refrigerated basement, naked, shivering, while the technical supervisor, a man, applied a layer of cold silicone over my chest. Pay attention, he said, avoiding eye contact. This family does not accept failure. The pay is triple the standard, but the rules of physical engagement are absolute. Did you memorize section 4? I did. I took a deep breath, focusing on the muscle memory from
hold
my
on a
training.
He's reading it from somebody else that's like, I think, writing into them. But
So this guy isn't the person.
I guess not. Yeah, it's just somebody commenting
Okay,
to
so
them
it's
about.
one layer deep.
It's
then.
an extra layer deep of Poe or no.
It's
Somebody
Yeah.
messaged us. It's like, Bob, would you be the corpse guy for? Is that your new?
So the
profession,
premise-
potentially.
the premise is that people are paid to pretend to be corpses.
Right.
Why?
Well, why not? What do you think, Jay?
Because they fake their death.
Correct.
That's the idea.
It's hard.
Bullshit. But there's a bunch of people running around that aren't dead.
That's how they get away.
You mean like
with
Elvis?
it. Right. Yep.
yeah,
Correct.
I reiterated
All right. Let's see.
the rules. Rule number 1, total thermal control. The corpse generates no heat. You will undergo a 40-minute ice immersion bath
bullshit.
before the event to lower your skin temperature to 28 degrees Celsius.
That's bullshit.
During the
Yeah,
wake,
40-minute ice immersion.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, this. I don't know.
Yeah,
This is
let's-
such a goofy.
It's complete. It's complete bullshit.
Yeah, this is bullshit.
I mean, the people reading it might buy it, but
I hope they address the fact that you don't necessarily even look anything like the person. So do they put a mask on?
why wouldn't they just have a dummy in there? Why would you need a human
Right.
to do it?
Right, and if they're so rich, they could spend 10 or 15 grand on creating an awesome corpse of
Yeah.
the person. I mean, so
Yeah,
that's
a good point.
Why factor in why
Why
add-
actually have a living person to pretend to be dead when you could? I mean, they do it in the movies all the time, right? They have their.
Yeah, it's
fake-
not like anyone's going to touch.
I do.
Whatever.
I do remember reading an article about the show 6 Feet Under. People were lining up
To be dead?
to be corpses on that show, like lining up, like you couldn't get that job easily.
So yeah, I mean, this is like obviously, I don't know. I mean, they might be goofing. The person writing in might be goofing, but the comments do seem to fall for some of this stuff, whether or not they're also playing into it or not. Here's somebody. The theory here is that the ultra-rich elites are eternal and shift from lifetime to lifetime. Look up clones in Hollyweird and politics. They're not human as we know. So it's, I mean, is this, satire that's going a little too deep? Is it just playing into the, I don't know, the neurotic nature of commenters on the internet?
It just
All
blows
of
my
the
mind.
above.
Like you see this guy, doing his whole content thing, and you're like, this guy's got enough going on where he's got a good mic, he's got a setup, lighting is okay. Like people are making money doing this kind of thing, like for real. Like, it scares the hell out of me. I mean, at our core, we are skeptics and we're activists and we are heavily driven by our message and everything. We have a legitimate purpose and a mission statement, but the vast majority of people that create content are basically, like this, like that guy, that's like, let's talk about people that pretend to be corpses. And if it's fake, we don't care. It's content.
Yeah.
And they're making money.
So do you think the internet was a mistake?
I think social
little
media was a
broad.
massive mistake.
Yeah, maybe.
If
There's some aspects that are bad, obviously.
if it went away, the net change would be positive. I think unequivocally.
Right now, maybe. All right. So that was one thing that was sent in. Thank you so much. Whoops. Don't look at that. Let's see. What else do we have? Oh, yeah. There's a...
Walter
you're going to
Carbon.
do that one for the talking. Let me just switch back to this. Blah, blah. Sorry. For Jay, this one, somebody tagged you in this one, or tagged us, and then... Here we go.
Nice.
Real.
Yep, I
Can
stand
happen.
corrected. Stand corrected. Yeah, he's picking up a pebble, by the way.
That looks pretty big. Well, I mean, it could be a big beetle. I guess.
No,
That's
legit
the
though.
question.
Like if there was like the way that Steve described it, steel iron is pretty damn dense, and if you want to look at like 98 pounds of iron, it would be way bigger than that rock, way bigger.
That's true.
Mhm.
Right. It was a tiny little beetle, I believe, was the idea.
Yeah. I mean, the more time that goes by, just the more ridiculous that whole thing is. Don't you agree, Steve?
No.
You still haven't. I know I need to do some research to kind of disprove it and put it to bed, but I don't know. I think it's complete bunk.
All right. One more fun thing, and then we'll get on to the serious.
Somebody said Jay making a meatball. That is pretty good.
Yeah, one more fun thing. Do you guys know Bill Wirtz? Are you familiar with this
No.
content creator? You might have seen his stuff. You probably have and don't
Probably.
know his name. But let's see. This is kind of how the universe came to be. Let's see if it comports.
But
with
it's
the
not
universe.
empty yet. It's still very full and about 1 jillion degrees. Great news, the quarks are now happily married in groups of 3, called a proton or a neutron. And there's something else flying around too that wants to join in but can't because it's still too... Great news, the protons and neutrons are now happily married to each other. Some of them even doubled up. Great news, the electrons have now joined in. Congratulations, the world is now a bunch of gas in space. But it's getting closer together. And it's getting closer together. And it's getting closer together. It's a star. New shit just got made. Some stars burn out and die. Bigger stars burn out and die with passion and make some brand new, way crazier shit. Which allows newer, more interesting stars to be made and then die and explode into even crazier space dust. So now stars have cool stuff around them, like rocks, ice, and funny clouds, which can make some very interesting things. Like this ball of flaming rocks, for example. Holy shit, we just got hit with another ball of flaming rocks. And it kind of made a mess, which is now... Weather update, it's raining rocks from outer space. Weather update, those rocks might have had water inside. But it's not empty yet.
All right, anyway,
Yeah.
that's a little.
I like it.
I know. Bill Wirtz is like the goat of YouTube stuff. Somebody tagged us and is like, "Is this real?"
Yeah, I love his one on the history of Japan. Have you ever
That's
seen that
right.
one?
History of Japan is one of the best ones.
Yeah, it's one of the best.
Really?
Yeah, you should. Okay, we'll play that another time. It's long. It's like 15 minutes, I think. It's very good. The style is terrible. You are wrong, Silac. Take that back.
It's funny.
It's funny. It's a whole and he does.
The West
crazy
brought
jazz
all
music.
sorts of
It's
things to Japan. And Jesus!
Jesus, yeah.
Space dust.
All right, let's get to the serious nonsense. Measles.
Yeah, measles.
Oh God, Ian.
Oh God.
Is that still a thing? We
That
still have measles?
apparently, it's still a thing.
fucking
So
guy.
Dr. Oz offers forceful call for vaccination. As measles becomes more dire. So, who could have thought about that?
I mean,
could've predicted
at what
measles
point did he wake up and go, I
Oh,
can't
yeah.
keep my mouth shut anymore. Like I know better, and I've been basically, sucking up to this administration and keeping my mouth shut with RFK and all the crazy shit that he's doing. But now I can't take it anymore. Get vaccinated.
I mean, he is one of the only people, well, not one of the only, but one of the people with an actual degree, right, in medicine who's in power.
At one point, he was a respected surgeon.
Yeah.
And he
But
sold his soul.
Right, then he kind of fell down the
Yeah.
whatever. So, I mean, is this a good start? Do you think it's even anywhere close to being enough from their
No, well, not for it. Doesn't redeem him in my eyes in any way. I mean, the point.
He's just a different kind of crank than RFK. This is not his thing.
But in order for him to do that, to go against the administration, obviously, I mean, this is a step away and not towing the party line here. What would push him to do that? I personally can't think of anything other than his own, struggle inside his head, knowing better and all the things that he's seeing happen. I mean, he's probably fantastically rich now.
Hold on now. The thing is, we have no idea what's going on behind the scenes.
I know that. I'm speculating.
But it's hard to speculate about his motivation when we don't know. Like, you're assuming that he's going against the administration. We don't know that.
Well, you think that there's like a design here with him doing this?
Well, maybe
it could be. Like RFK has to say what he has to say, but at the same time, they don't want a measles epidemic. You know what I mean? So, all right, well, let Dr. Oz promote the vaccines. RFK Jr. will stay silent about it. And RFK has said, get vaccinated for the measles. You know what I mean? But he's always like coy about it, and he emphasizes, you could, treat it with diet and with vitamin A or whatever, and get vaccinated. But
here's a statement from Kennedy: is that we don't know the risks of many of these products because they're not safety tested.
Yes, they
which
are.
Is
you piece of shit.
Seemingly incorrect.
They are safety tested.
Right.
They are safety tested.
So he's playing both sides, obviously. So.
But we don't know if there's any message coordination going on behind the scenes where they're trying to have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah, it's possible. It's just ridiculous because, it is clearly going against, RFK and everything that he said over the past, 20 years of his miserable life. So whatever the cause is, whether Oz had a moment of clarity or this is planned or whatever, like people are saying it in the chat, like you can't trust anything that they say.
No.
Why would they trust Oz over RFK? What's to most people, I would imagine that there isn't really even a difference between those two guys.
But there's a huge difference.
Of course there is.
Different
you
flavors.
And I know that.
But he is correct. You should get vaccinated for the measles. We eliminated measles, endemic measles from the United States with vaccines.
Right.
And so endemic means that it's self-sustaining in the U.S. And eliminated means it's no longer, you don't get catch cases in the U.S. unless it was brought in from the outside, right?
Right.
We haven't eradicated it from the world, but we have eliminated it in the country. But now we're about to lose, or we did lose our eliminated status.
We haven't lost it yet, as far as I know.
It's getting
close.
If we haven't, it's getting close, because because you have outbreaks. Somebody brings the measles in, then there's an outbreak, mostly among the non-vaccinated. But if those outbreaks spread to other outbreaks, then it becomes self-sustained. Then it's no longer eliminated.
Yeah.
Right.
Definition of status: elimination means interrupting domestic transmission for 12 months. So the U.S. reported over 2,000 measles cases in 2025, the highest since 1991. With 89% of the cases being outbreak associated. So it's close to...
Yeah.
Based on what this says.
2,000 cases. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot. Okay, so let's maybe talk about how we handled COVID a little bit. Do you think that there were some missteps with how we spoke to people who don't believe in vaccines from the administration back during COVID? And is Dr. Oz falling for the same kind of thing where they're just kind of being like, oh, this is the official status of the U.S., like you should get, vaccinated? Or is he actively trying to reach out to people who don't believe in vaccines?
I mean, the thing about COVID is that there was no perfect way to handle it.
That's what
there were different trade-offs.
Yeah.
Right? And there's always different trade-offs when you're talking about public health, because there is no perfect solution.
Right.
And you always have to judge what the experts were saying with the information we had at the time.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, they said that a lot.
You can't Monday morning quarterback. So knowing what we know now, that was not the perfect way to phrase this or state that or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to the COVID vaccine, there was nothing egregiously wrong. Everything they said was basically correct.
Yeah.
The vaccine works. It is safe. You are better off getting vaccinated than not getting vaccinated. The risk versus benefit is favorable, basically for anyone when there's an outbreak, or when we were still in the pandemic phase. Except for people who shouldn't have reasons why they can't get vaccinated. The severe side effects were really rare. I mean, extremely low. So the only other thing you can question is, like, was it reasonable for companies to say you can't come to work unless you're vaccinated? There's no right or wrong answer to that. Again, that's a trade-off. We're in the middle of a deadly pandemic. Supporting and requiring common sense public health measures is not unreasonable. You know what I mean? So it's really like the sort of the anti-vaxxers and the people who just the conspiracy theorists or who whatever they're the ones who were making it controversial. And then saying, well, you shouldn't be forcing it on people who doubt it. Well, you made them doubt it in the first place by lying to them.
Yeah.
So you're kind of justifying your own existence.
Well, I guess if you could go back, what would you have changed? Like with postmortem, I know it's dark to say the postmortem, but like, is there anything you would have changed now that you know more? Not necessarily about like how effective the vaccines were, et cetera, but the communication aspect of
how dramatic their reaction was going to be against the good science.
Would you change how you articulated certain things? Not you specifically, but like as Fauci or like anybody in the administration.
I mean, again, you could tweak things here and there. The thing is, no matter what you said, they would have twisted it to their narrative and to their political agenda, and then you could be criticizing them for saying it that way or for not saying something or whatever. There was no bulletproof way to communicate it that the anti-vaxxers could not have exploited. So someone in the chat said that the natural immunity is better than the immunity from vaccines. Wrong. That is straight up wrong. The whole point of vaccines is that you can get immunity without having the risks and the morbidity of having the actual disease. So it's wrong. You're better off getting the free immunity you get pretty much from vaccines rather than having the disease. Being dependent on big pharma. I mean, that's kind of just a stupid point. That's like all of medicine. You're dependent on some system. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And did you hear RFK's recent quote? I came across, I think, earlier today. He said that 25% of Americans believe that they know somebody who died from the COVID vaccine.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Yeah. Sounds great. Yeah.
That sounds like we need to change science education, not vaccine usage.
Yeah.
Flatten the curve was not a lie. It was absolutely fucking true. We did flatten the curve. Flatten the curve doesn't mean that people don't eventually get sick. It means that they don't get sick all at the same time. That was the point, because hospitals were being overwhelmed. I had one of my colleagues who I went to medical school with was on the front lines in New York. They had to put 2 people on the same ventilator. They were sharing at the peak.
I remember
early on. This was really bad. If we didn't do what we had to do to flatten the curve, again, you could whatever trade-offs we made, you could say this was bad, but you don't know the counter narrative. You don't know what would have happened if we didn't, like, for example, do some kind of shutdown. Then people could be saying, well, you didn't do anything to mitigate this, and we had this many people die, or how horrible it was. It's like shutting down the schools. Yes, we underestimated the downside of shutting down the schools, absolutely. But we can't say, looking back, that we shouldn't have done it, because we don't know exactly what would have happened if we didn't do it. Right?
Worst case scenarios could have been dramatic.
It could have been a dramatic worst. Plus, most of the time, we had kids in the schools at this time. Even once the school wasn't technically closed, they were closed a lot of times because teachers were sick. So that was more the limiting factor than anything else. To say, but the kids weren't really that vulnerable. Yeah, but their teachers were, and every time they were exposed or had the sniffles or whatever, it had to be tested, they're out for a week or longer, So it was a no-win scenario. And again, you can second guess every decision that was made. It was all reasonable. Was it optimal in hindsight? No, there's 100 ways you could have tweaked it. If we knew everything we know now back then, which we didn't, it was a novel virus. But the idea that things would have been great if we just did nothing is just all bullshit.
Well, to that point, it's like when you do implement something to flatten the curve, and it does seem like they want to see the curve before, but then if you flatten the curve, they come up with the excuse that it's like, well, see, we didn't need to do anything to flatten the curve. But you're not seeing the extreme curve because we did flatten the curve.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
So it's kind of a
like
no-win
nothing
scenario.
happened
So
to
what does that
Y2K.
mean?
What was all the fuss about?
Right, that's a great one. Yeah,
And
exactly.
the funny part
Yes.
about all of this is that if Trump and the anti-vaxxers didn't make it a thing, right? If they didn't dramatize all of this and do all this complete nonsense, trying to find every loophole or whatever they could find to criticize this and criticize that, we would have just gone on as normal, trusting the goddamn experts who have been doing this stuff. You look at Fauci's freaking resume. You read about what this guy has done and everything. He's the exact type of person that we need to listen to.
But it wasn't just him. He was just the communicator.
Oh, I know. There was a million people behind him.
There's a lot of
But the point I'm making
teams of
is,
experts working on this.
it's like all of this that we're talking about right now is because a very small number of people decided to make a thing out of it. Historically, we trust experts because of their, expertise, right? Like you're going to trust someone to train a Olympian, right? That's because that person probably has decades behind them training people and have gotten themselves up to a level of expertise to let them do these things. But this fight that we have against expertise, ultimately, to me, that's the real problem.
Yeah. That's a deeper issue. But you're right. It's manufactured. They manufacture the doubt that then they say they exploit. Right. Well, people are concerned about this. They're concerned about it because you freaking lied to them about it and made them concerned about it. Somebody said that public health is damned if you do, damned if you don't. That is so true. It's one of those things where if nothing happens, you get zero credit because that means you did your job.
Yeah.
Right.
That's my job as a producer. If you do it really well, no one even notices.
There are lots of jobs where your job is to make people not notice that you're doing your job.
Right.
People notice it. That's always a bad
Yeah,
thing.
like back in the day when matte paintings were a thing in science fiction. Like if you did a great matte painting, nobody noticed it, so nobody even knows that somebody actually had to do that. But if you screw it up, man, they will know.
Right. If you say, wow, that's a great matte painting. No, it isn't.
They failed.
Unless you know just
Right.
by contextually. Like one of our friends who tried to learn Japanese really well, Brian, he said, if somebody compliments you, you speak very well, that's an insult.
Yeah,
because they notice that you're not a native speaker.
Yeah.
So if somebody doesn't notice at all, then doesn't say anything. That's what you're going for, right?
Wacko Mind, I don't really understand your point here. You're saying that we don't apply our skeptical philosophy to vaccines. That's
so. All right.
incorrect.
So in case you're unaware, I'm a physician, right? I had a 30-year career as a physician. I'm the executive producer of Science-Based Medicine. I've spent the last 4 decades studying this, so I know what I'm talking about. I'm not making an argument from authority, but you're making the argument that like I did what? Well, you haven't looked at this skeptically. I haven't examined the science. You're wrong. I don't have to trust the experts on this issue. I am a freaking expert.
Holy shit!
Although there are
Bobby
people
finally said it.
There are people who have more expertise than I do, and I do listen to them. I align what I believe with people who have even more expertise. It's a hierarchy of expertise. That's how the medical world works. You try to understand things as best you can at your level of expertise, but you listen to the hierarchy of expertise. You have people who are more subspecialized, who are then world experts in that subspecialty, who are doing research, et cetera, et cetera. So I know the research on vaccines. They are proven safe and effective. They undergo just as much research as any other drug that goes on the market. And also, take your blinders off. The United States isn't the only country in the world. This research is often replicated around the world. There are agencies for every country that evaluates the evidence and decides what their policy should be. So this gets replicated over and over again. And vaccines are the most safe and effective public health intervention that mankind has ever existed. And the ROI is unbelievable. The amount of money we spend on vaccines versus the money we save on the diseases
And the lives that are
presented.
saved. Like, don't just make it a money
also
thing,
lives
right?
and also then the economic benefits, you know, the lost work, etc. Is there's nothing that even comes close to it. And if you've heard differently, you have been lied to. You have been absolutely lied to by ideologues and anti-vaxxers who don't have a good argument to make. They don't have the evidence on their side. They're not scientists. They distort everything. They are conspiracy theorists, and they're just straight up wrong.
Well, Band-Aids are pretty damn effective, though, Steve.
Yeah.
You think that vaccines are better than Band-Aids?
Have
Yes,
you
I
tried
do.
horse
They do.
paste? Okay, so in the world of like needing more science communication, do you think we should not rest on our laurels where we just let things, be hidden behind the scene, and that we need, scientists to become science communicators and just overwhelm social media with positive stories of like, this is why this works? Is that actually a good thing to flood it with like, here's what the vaccines are doing in a positive way? Like,
I think we need to have more scientists and experts engaging on social media
like that.
and balancing the negativity and the trolls and the conspiracy theorists. Absolutely.
But like, does posting stuff actually lead to more conspiracy theorists, or does leaving it in a vacuum like metastasize?
I think leaving it in the vacuum is not working.
Okay. There
You know,
you go.
look, for everyone in the chat, too, like, I feel bad for the person in the chat that has bought into all this stuff, because 99% of people that think that way didn't really come to that conclusion on their own. They're just hearing this.
Mm-hmm.
They think that they can trust the people that they're hearing it from, and they're believing it. And
And
we're
the people
lucky.
that are hearing it from, they were deceived themselves. They're just passing the deception forward.
Yeah, but there is a layer of people who literally manufacture the.
If you dig down deep enough, there are people who are making millions of dollars selling this bullshit. But
Yeah.
most people are just they're both victims and perpetrators at the same time. They're
Yeah.
just sort of passing it along.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. Whoever that person is out there, look, we have nothing to gain other than educating people and telling them, scientific facts here. And, the distrust of expertise and distrust of science and distrust of all of these things has led to horrible things that are absolutely measurable. They're measurable. And you look at the statistics, the people who got vaccinated died a lot less than the people who weren't vaccinated. That is, you can't argue that
Yeah,
point.
but a lot of it comes down to they don't trust that. They don't trust. They trust other people who have another narrative, right? It's like, which narrative do you trust? And then, of course, we have some process by evaluating the source, right? Is this a reliable source? Are these professionals? Has this been evaluated? Is there a level of transparency here? Is this institutionalized? Is there a process involved? Whereas, to people who don't have enough of an understanding of that, scientific literacy, media literacy, etc., it's just different black boxes, just different talking heads,
Right.
and they just choose one narrative over another. And then once you buy into that paradigm,
You're in that tribe.
then that's it. Then you have what we talked on the show yesterday,
Echo.
epistemic isolation, where there's now no possibility of dissuading you from your narrative,
Yep.
because anything that defies that narrative, that's part of the conspiracy. Those people are lying, like whatever.
Wacko Mind, that is so dismissive.
It's not hate. We don't hate you.
You don't hate it. Like, we're frustrated because we've seen a horrible thing happen over the last 10 years here. We saw people die that didn't need to. We've seen people shunning expertise that shouldn't be. We've lost institutional knowledge. The same exact process. Let's listen to this and sit down. Listen.
Stand up, then sit down.
Stand up, now sit down.
Thank you.
The same exact process that made this absolute goddamn technological miracle right here, right? This thing has been developed by millions and millions of people over the last 100 years, and let me explain what that means. That means that all these little steps in progress that we've made through all the different scientific fields that needed to make this thing, from electrical engineering to physical engineering to glass, everything. I mean, I can't even tell you, I don't even have the knowledge to tell you all the different types of engineers and experts that finally needed to be, all the expertise and all of the existing technology that needed to be there in order to make this thing. It took 100 years for humanity to get to this. You could make an argument that it took 1,000 years for humanity to be able to manufacture
That technology
an iPhone.
builds on stuff. And the other thing is...
Wait, let me finish my point.
Yeah, go ahead.
The point is that process of learning and passing the information on. And when things, if they don't work, they get vetted out, because if they don't work, they don't work. And if they do work, that information moves forward, and you can build upon it and build upon it and build upon it. That's institutional knowledge, and that's expertise. And we talk about medical expertise. We didn't one day, wake up and, be able to do the incredible things that we can do with medicine today. I mean, my God, my father-in-law, like, his life literally just got saved by modern medicine. Like, remarkably, something incredible happened. It's not I'm not open enough to tell you guys all the details because it's his business. But I just watched him go from this is going to kill you to this, you won't die from this. That's modern medicine. That didn't happen by one person sitting there, figuring it out. That happened by people working on medical technology for 150 years.
And it's not just that. It's the process is transparent, right? So when you're looking at like a vaccine or any sort of medical intervention, we've often mentioned on the show, like when something new hits the market, like any of the new monoclonal antibody medications that are out, for example, and you say, all right, when was that idea first discovered? It usually goes back 30 years, right? Like from the time that like the latest migraine medications came out, like the CGRP inhibitor. It's like, well, when did we discover CGRP was a thing, even that it existed? That's like 40, 50 years ago. Yeah. And then
That's how long it
then we
takes.
had to discover like what does it do and what role does it play in migraines, and then et cetera, et cetera. And that's 50 years of research. That's all published in the literature. It's all there. It's all transparent. No one person did this. This is and that research has been evaluated and replicated in different countries by different institutions, different people. It builds on itself. If it didn't work, it would collapse. It would go nowhere.
I know, but that's the whole point.
By the time you get to a final, translational research, to a final application, there is a mountain of published scientific evidence that went into that. You can't just look at the last bit and say, "Oh, this is Big Pharma has squirted this thing out." No, they didn't.
Right.
No.
They got that. What Big Pharma does is they're constantly looking for. They're reading the literature too, and if you come up with something that they think can be translated into a drug that they could sell and make money off of, then that gets in the pipeline.
Yeah.
Well,
mRNA is the same exact thing you just said, Steve. When I researched it for the SGU,
Yeah.
I think we're going back a decade now, when I was like, I want to know the history of this. I really want to be able to speak intelligently about like how long it took and how many people it took and all the stages. I mean, it started at this point, because I talked about it 10 years ago now. It was the very beginnings of the mRNA platform started 50 years ago. And it took thousands and thousands of researchers pushing the ball a little bit forward here, a little bit forward there. That when they started it, they didn't go, "Hey, we're going to make a vaccine platform in the future."
Well, but at some point somebody said, "Huh."
Yeah, but it wasn't the very beginning.
No, but maybe 10 or so earlier than you think. Though it's always earlier than you think. So this is something that can be exploited, to do X, Y, or Z, right? And that pipeline is 30 years long. It's like even with the monoclonal antibodies, I learned about that in medical school in 1990, let's say. And like, this is going to be the next, greatest thing. We could look what we could do, and we could make drugs out of this. But they didn't really start hitting the market. I mean, there was a couple of early ones, but the real like inflection point was in like 2015. 25 years later is when they actually started to change the practice of medicine.
Steve, what's the deal with the mRNA and the GMO yeast?
Well, even before you explain it, like maybe Waco would be like, so what? Like he says, the mRNA vaccines have major drawbacks in regards to the GMO yeasts that are used.
That's not true.
And also,
there's no drawback, and GMOs are fine.
But it's also like, so what? Like, what does that have to do with you or us or like?
My response to that, like, first of all,
okay,
where did that information come from? Who were the researchers? Show me the studies, right? Like you can't make a statement like that.
What does the expert community say about it? Because in a lot of the TikTok videos that we review, there are people who like know words but don't really understand the science. And they might be referring to actual studies or actual science. They just have no idea. Like one of the things I'm going to talk about later is about the nicotine thing, that jackass who talks about it. Nicotine will cure schizophrenia. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about, But you yes, there's a connection there, but you doesn't understand the difference between a treatment, of a symptom and a cure. Like you're throwing the cure word out there. You don't even know what the freak
Yeah,
it
that was
means.
ridiculous.
So yeah,
On its face.
It takes. Part of it is understanding how much expertise it requires to like really understand scientific research.
We talk about this all the time. I mean,
I know.
I like to communicate it like this because I am not an expert. You know, I have skill sets in my life that I'm very good at, but I'm not an expert in anything, and it's perfectly fine because most of us aren't. But I've been around experts for the last 30 years. I've interviewed hundreds, if not thousands, of experts. I've been the non-expert in the room my whole career as a critical thinker and as a science communicator. And let me tell you, when you hear experts talk, and when you hear them talk to each other, it's unbelievably remarkable and humbling to hear them talk because, as we've said before, they're not one click above.
10 clicks.
They're 10 clicks, and it becomes, you become humbled immediately because you realize I don't even understand the click above what they're talking, let alone all the way up into that full expertise. Like the best case, we said this very recently, but we heard physicists talking to each other that were on that level in their expertise. It's like, oh my God, like the stuff that we hear is literally an interpretation. It's dumbed down to such a degree.
Well, it's because like they're throwing around concepts that took a semester of school to learn. Right, to really wrap your head around and understand what it means.
Do you know what's behind that acronym he just used?
Yeah,
It's like,
that was
I took 5 tests on that one acronym. But also,
wait, can I just say one thing, Bob? Why I don't want to cut you off, but it just hit me so hard. Like, why do we have to eschew experts? Why do we have to be so in their face? Like, expertise is where human progress happens.
Yeah,
they've turned it into expertise as a scam. But this isn't a scam, right? Like this is, when you look at the iPhone, it's such a perfect example of like massive expertise to achieve something remarkable. Well, anything that we've achieved, when you look at modern mechanics, you look at like the latest and greatest automobiles are out there, the level of expertise and the number of experts it takes to do that. Why would we tell those people, why would we say publicly, that's all bullshit, expertise is bullshit? It clearly isn't. But it clearly isn't bullshit because we're living in a world that's filled with fantastic things and concepts and solutions.
But don't forget, I mean, you could lionize an expert here, an expert there. Yeah, they're very knowledgeable. They're using terms and concepts. I don't know what they're talking about. And if they're legit experts, that's great. But there's also a level beyond that expert, and that's scientific consensus.
Yeah,
that's
true.
That's what non-experts can talk about, is what the scientific consensus is. It's not like here's what one expert said, because he could be a
any
crank
individual
in anything he's
expert
talking.
could be wrong.
Right, but if you're describing the scientific consensus, then what else can you possibly do in a field that you're not an expert yourself in? This is what you're talking about. And if somebody has something against the scientific consensus, then I don't know what else we could say to you, because what's better than the scientific consensus?
I mean, the reason why we're not pushing carts around right now is because of expertise, because people, at some point in human history, people had the free time to actually focus on things other than survival.
It's also interesting to think about. There's 8 billion people on the planet. How many of them are really pushing the ball forward?
Not many, of course.
It's like 0.1%
Yeah,
or something. Well, there's maybe 1 million or so people in the world that are like actually advancing human knowledge and technology and pushing the ball forward and who have actual ideas. And everyone else is just riding their coattails.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I consider myself, this is very dark, but I try to, what's my value in my life? I mean, look, me and most of everybody else out there, we're struggling and we're consumers. I help educate people. That's probably the best. Being a father, being a husband, and educating people are probably the best things I'll ever do in my life. I'm not gonna push the ball forward on anything, and I have to be okay
it's hard,
with it.
Because before you could push the cutting edge forward, you have to get to it, and that's you have to dedicate your career to that. You have to get you have to get like postgraduate level, PhD level study to be even in the game, and even then you may not push the ball forward.
And that edge is flying away from you fast.
And to think that there are people out there that literally are like, oh, expertise is bullshit. It's all been a lie and all that stuff. It's like, hey, Bill, expertise is bullshit. Okay. Well, I'm talking on a device. I'm sitting on a bed that has literally been.
Let me give you another perspective. That's like saying sports expertise is bullshit. Yeah, so go fucking play the NFL. Get on the front line, get on the line of scrimmage against a typical NFL player, and you will be crushed into the dust, right? And it's the same is true intellectually as it is physically. try to compete with the with any Olympian, right? Go ahead, you go out there, even curling. Go ahead, play it.
Even curling.
Get out
I
there.
I got this.
You've
Whoa.
watched it on
Try to
TV.
brush.
Get out there and throw that
This
throw
is more
that
complex
stone
than I thought.
against the other, and they will destroy you.
One of my favorite stories, I know we just said this, but I asked Daniel Dennett a question, and my question was so stupid, he couldn't even respond to me. He
That's
couldn't
very
even
common.
respond.
You shouldn't feel bad. That's
No,
very
I don't
common.
feel bad, but I wear it as a badge of honor because
Yeah.
it perfectly shows the difference here between regular people and people who have dedicated themselves to a field or two.
But what it is, this is because this happens, right? If you have a certain level of expertise, you get those questions that like are unanswerable.
Yeah.
The trick is trying to figure out what misconception the questioner
Right.
has that's causing them to ask a question that you can't answer.
Right. If humans evolved from apes, how come there's still apes around?
Right,
It's
yeah,
like, all
but
right.
you know, easy, like worse than that. It's like, okay, I don't know what your misconception is. That led you to that question.
Right.
Like I don't even know what you're asking.
Yeah.
It's not like the question is I can't answer the question. It's like I don't know what you're asking. It's because there has to be some misconception in there, and that is a conversation. But that's why I love
Steve,
I
if,
love
he
questions.
if he slapped me in the face, it would have been basically the same thing. you
Yeah,
know?
but the point, like in like a classroom setting,
Yeah.
we were doing an interview. It was a time thing, but like if you're in the classroom, I love those questions because you never know what somebody really is absorbing that you're telling
Yeah,
them
yeah.
until they ask you a question. Their questions
Yes.
reveal what they really understand and don't understand.
Right. Absolutely.
And so that question of, all right, let's explain to me that question. What do you give me some more backstory on that. Then you sort of dig down to some major misconception they had that to you is so basic you haven't thought about it in years, whatever. Like it never even would occur to you now.
Right.
That somebody could have that misconception. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, now I get it. You don't understand this.
Yeah.
Let me explain this to you, and then that.
Right.
So anyway, that's why that's very common. It's actually a good thing when that happens in a way, but it does. It is a good reflection of you're too many steps ahead.
Yeah.
It's hard to bridge that gap, right?
What do you do then in response to this, like as a layperson, not necessarily as a science communicator, when somebody brings up these things? It seems like you're just trying to snuff out one candle after another of these claims. Is that an effective strategy? Or, little spoilers from what we recorded yesterday. Do you think it's more effective to be like, what have you heard? And let them try to articulate what claim they're making?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the form and the setting, right? We can't ask however 100 people that are watching the live stream, tell us what you've heard. Mm-hmm. If you're in a private conversation with somebody or in a small group, that is a good strategy. Which we've said, I mean, that's a good way to put it. That's a good sort of opening question to ask. But the context that we've stayed many times and even it's in our book is, you should try to find out what the other person actually believes.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And don't tell them what they believe.
Right.
That I find very frustrating when I'm in a conversation with somebody and they're telling me what I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's like, shut up, stop. You don't know what I think.
It's probably
clearly
frustrating on their end too if we say the same thing back.
Steve,
and that's why we have to be careful not to do
Yeah,
that.
don't-
Like,
it's
oh, you
hard not to
probably
generalize.
think this and you probably think that. Don't say that. You should never find yourself saying that to somebody else. Ask them what they actually think.
People always assume
And
that
then
I'm
they-
like pro Joe Biden to like a flawless level. Like everything he did was.
Well, that's a straw man. They have a cartoonish straw man in their head about what the other side thinks.
Yep.
And when you say anything which even remotely smells of the other side, then they assume, oh, you believe all of this straw man bullshit that I've heard the other side believes.
Yeah.
And then they start arguing against that straw man because that's what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy. It's rather than saying, oh, tell me what you think about this, and then engaging with what you actually think.
And there's so much bluster, and then when it shakes out, all of the anti-vaxxers and all the information that they're saying, like it never checks out with reality. Donald Trump is a perfect example.
Yeah.
All of the things that he said, I'm going to give you money from this, I'm going to give you money from that, I'm going to lower these prices, we're going to do this, we're not going to, everything. A year later, we look back, it's all bullshit. It's been all bullshit. We're not in good financial standing. There's so many examples of that just in what's been communicated the last year. But I want to switch us to something more positive.
Yeah,
here we go.
I want to talk about
Jury duty.
Trees.
how awesome the upcoming Artemis mission is.
Yeah.
And then I want to give everyone an update on the moon hoax school teacher situation.
How about real quick? People are asking about my jury duty thing.
Oh, go
so,
ahead. Yeah.
All right. So I had jury duty last week, and the premise of this is that 25 years ago I went to jury duty. I was voir dired, and the two lawyers questioning me said, "Bob, what do you do in your spare time?" And I said, I'm actually I'm a member of the New England Skeptical Society, and I was literally writing an article about the fallibility of human memory. When I told them that, the look on their faces, I was literally in my car going home, and that was it. That's the last experience I had with jury duty, a quarter of a century ago. Never been asked back. I don't know exactly, I don't want to draw any conclusions, but I was asked, I went last week. I was kind of excited because I wanted to be voir dired again, and I wanted to really lean into the whole skeptic angle and see what their take was. But they called away half the people to go to do a court case to be voir dired for, and so I'm sitting there with like 25 people, and they read all of our names to make sure we were there, and they're like, "Okay, your case has been settled. You can all go home now. You're done with jury duty."
You got so lucky, Bob.
I
That
was
happens to
happy.
me half the time I go to.
You're
I was
so lucky,
happy,
Bob.
and I was lucky, and that's cool. But still, a part of me was a little disappointed because I wanted to see what their reaction would have been if I just laid into it and just told the truth about what I do.
Yeah.
Now is basically, it's my, I don't have any other job other really than that. So it's like, but maybe next time in 2029.
I got to the point where I actually got sent to the room, right? So now I'm in a room with
voir dired. You're being voir dired by.
to be voir dired. Then they would take you one at a time to get
Right,
voir
yeah,
dired.
yeah.
And then the judge comes in to talk to us, and it was I don't know why he felt he needed to have maybe it was a slow day, and he has this long conversation with us about they didn't need to voir dire us. They settled.
Oh.
But we
Okay.
were already in the thing. But he was trying to tell us how important it was that we showed up to do our jury duty, and
Okay.
that sometimes just having a jury in the next room leads to the case settling.
Oh yeah,
So,
it's getting
which is
real.
probably-
It's getting real.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, think about the pressure. Like you're all of a sudden you're there, and there's people in the other room that
It's
are
like,
gonna,
should we bring in the first juror is sitting right over there? Should we bring them in to voir dire
Yeah,
them,
it's
or you
gotta
want to
be.
fucking settle this case? And they settled. Yeah.
So I have been, I actually had a quick discussion with a contact I have at NASA because I'm trying to pull some people to come on the show and everything.
Yeah.
And there's just so much cool stuff going on behind the scenes that most people don't know about. So I highly recommend start reading about it. Like, get into the details because the details are so much fun here about like what the process is. So we do know that the launch was delayed into March.
To March. Yeah.
And the whole thing about them being in quarantine and all that stuff, I find that kind of fascinating. Like what the blow by blow is by that. But we did talk about it on the show, so I don't want to bore everyone about that again. But the fact is, the launch is coming. It's going to happen very soon, and we're going to have a crewed flight that's going to leave the Earth. It's going to launch, go around the Earth, get coordinated, and then go around the moon and come right back.
Yeah.
They're not orbiting the moon.
Yeah.
It's just a flyby.
Not an orbital insertion, which
Yeah.
requires a lot more fuel.
Energy
Yeah,
and everything.
yeah.
It's a much different mission at that point. But the whole thing that we're doing in this mission, guys, is we're testing everything to make sure that we could then, have things orbit the moon and get people on the moon, which is Artemis 3. So Artemis 2 is an absolute required step here because we just don't know fully if everything is going to work exactly like it needs to. And, they have to be so careful because one thing goes wrong and these people could lose their lives, and millions and millions and millions of dollars could easily be lost out in
billion.
space. Billions of dollars.
$1 billion.
Yeah, you're right.
So that one Artemis rocket, full stack, I think is $1 billion.
Yeah. But I feel very confident. I mean, they've
You
been
got
working
Groupon
on
on
this a
that?
long time. The next thing, what we didn't follow up on, Steve, because I just didn't see it hit the news, is like, where did they finally land with the spacesuits?
Yeah,
Oh,
but they
yeah.
don't need the spacesuits to be on the moon yet. That's still a year away.
I know, but still, like, we're
Have they?
Yeah.
I don't know. I got to look it up.
I don't think they made a final decision on the lander yet either, did they?
I know that they're
Don't
working
they have
on
two
it.
possible landers
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
and I hear there's some concerns about how
Well, if we
good
can
they really
get
are.
somebody from NASA to give us an interview, then we can ask all these questions.
Yeah.
Right? Where are we with the lander? Where are we with the spacesuits?
But I did put myself in the queue, so
Yeah,
I'm going to be
okay.
contacted, which was great. All right, so I don't know if everyone here is up to speed on the whole. My daughter's science teacher does not believe that people landed on the moon. He taught this to the entire grade of the.
Has that been confirmed?
Yeah, so he taught it to 3 classes. So what they do is they split in this age range.
Where do you have confirmation from about that?
From the principal.
Okay, the principal confirmed he taught it to 3 different classes.
Yeah, and those 3 classes make up half of her grade because there's like a team and a B team, and they all there's too many kids for these teachers to handle, so they split it up. It's typical.
So there's 2 science teachers then, probably.
Yeah, there is. Here's what I found out because the principal just called me. So to explain things real quick, like I said, the science teacher taught it had to be at least 30 or 40 kids. That the moon landing didn't happen. It wasn't like the whole class wasn't about that, of course, but it came up, and he taught it to each class. And my daughter came home and said, that day I picked her up at the bus stop, and she said, "Did you know that we didn't land on the moon?" And then I, of course, was like, "Tell me everything that happened, whatever." She came out with some of the typical argument points that the deniers say, and I immediately knew it was from the teacher. So my wife and I contacted the principal. We gave them all the information that we collected from my daughter. This is 10th grade. And
10th grade?
I'm sorry. She's 10. She's in 5th grade. Yeah,
all
not
right.
10th grade. Yeah, they're high school. They're almost in college. The quick answer to the update is this. The principal was out literally the day that we talked with her. She said, "I'm going to be out for 2 weeks." She had a medical thing. And we all knew that not much was going to happen while she was gone. She's been back now a week and a half, and she finally called and gave us an update. And the update is pretty much this, that they have been talking about how to correct the misinformation, because all of those kids have to be taught, what the misinformation is and how to essentially, they want to teach them how to navigate misinformation, and then they're going to use the moon landing as an example. I felt like it was said through subtext very clearly. They're not going to say, the teacher is wrong, and this is the things that they said, and we're going to counteract the points that were made in the class that day. It's going to be much more generalized, which I guess is fine, because if they came down hard on the individual, I think it would do more damage than good, because they don't want to create a situation where the kids can't trust their teachers, even though it's freaking true. But they don't want to reinforce that. They actually want to reinforce more critical thinking skills, which I'm very curious about. Critical thinking actually came up several times in the conversation. That was one of them, which is the fixing of the situation and their methodology to fix the misinformation. The other time in the conversation, the principal very specifically said that some people in the administration who are reviewing this case are kind of classifying it as a failed lecture on critical thinking. And my wife and I were being 100% clear to the principal. There is no way that interpreting this as a failed attempt at critical thinking. You can't say it. It's mischaracterized completely. What happened was the teacher told something that was inappropriate, that wasn't in the canon of the school, which means the teacher taught them something that he absolutely should not have taught them. It wasn't him trying to teach them critical thinking in any way. It was him teaching them conspiracy thinking. And it was definitely, definite communication of misinformation. There was no other way to look at it. And coming from where I sit, I've talked to my daughter is not the only data point of what happened in the classroom that day. So the principal was being very guarded and being very careful, because there's a lot of things that the principal has to protect. First of all, the principal is the person that is in charge of that school, not the school system, but that particular school. And there are things like, the teachers belong to a guild, essentially, which gives them their tenure. And they can't just come out swinging against the teacher. They have to build a case, and they have to very systematically do the research, figure out exactly what was said, get as much information as they can. Then procedurally, they have to go through a rigmarole to even approach doing something that could be at this level, right? It's not like, hey, stop it, which a principal could talk to a teacher and say that. But if anything's going to happen, then the brakes get hit and it slows way down, and a lot more people get involved. So that's why there's kind of like a committee now that's going through the process here. And I would never put it past some teachers to try to be protective of other teachers, and I think largely because they could see themselves on the side of that committee at some point, on the wrong side of that committee. So there's a lot of that going on, but I did apply back pressure in the conversation because I want the teacher to understand this, and I had to say it in a very rational way too. I was not, we can't act emotionally in this situation, but I said, listen. There was several things that happened here that made me and my wife very angry and were very difficult to deal with. One of them, of course, is the misinformation that the kids were taught. The other thing is that the teacher, when I emailed the teacher and trying to ask for clarification on what that lesson was and why, the teacher was very abrupt and short, and there was no discussion with the teacher. It was, I said this, that's it, it's true, you can't disprove it, and end of discussion. That was essentially what that email was. And I made that very clear. And I also had to make clear, I didn't say it, but I said subtextually, if we don't get the result that we want, then this is far from over. I made that as clear as possible without coming out and being a jerk about it, because I don't want to be a jerk and I don't want to be forceful. I do feel like this administrator is quote unquote on the correct side. I do get that sense, again, because it isn't crystal clear communication that we're having. It's very much couched in niceties and trying to use the right words and say things in the right way. But I think both her and me and my wife successfully communicated to the other side exactly what needed to be communicated. So I guess the takeaway from this whole conversation was wheels are turning, progress is being made. They are developing a plan. The kids are going to have a correction in the misinformation, and they are going to try to teach them some type of critical thinking skills here, which, again, I don't have high hopes on the quality of that, but you never know. We don't know who is actually going to be running that. There are people who definitely, absolutely know that this is a devastatingly serious situation, and they're treating it that way. So it was a net gain, but again, how long do I give these administrators until, I need to do something that steps outside of them? How long, what's appropriate? Do I give them a week, 2 weeks, a month, to the end of the school year, middle of the summer? I don't know.
No, something's got to happen this school.
Yeah,
this
I would think
term, right?
Yeah.
I'm loosely in my head thinking I'll give them 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I'll give them a month. And if we are still dead in the water and I'm still getting this nonsense kind of, very, very non-specific communication, then we're going to do something. And I'm not crystal clear what that is either yet, but something's going to happen.
We offered our services to teach critical thinking and teach about this. I don't know if they'll avail themselves of it. Yep.
We don't live in a world anymore where it's very hard. Anytime that guilds are involved and people have tenure and there's a lot of safeties in place. Yeah. And I'm not putting down those safety mechanisms because they're there to protect teachers and let them do their jobs pretty much.
Yeah, there's a trade-off. There's a balance, this is at the very least, this is an incident, right? This goes in his file. They're documenting it.
Yeah.
And they may not be enough by itself, because you always have to give people an opportunity to correct you have to tell them their mistake. You have to give them an opportunity to correct it. If he does all that, and now he knows that that they're watching him, and that this is already one incident has already been documented, and if he does it again, then you build towards the point where they could let him go.
And I've said it before, this isn't the first incident that we've had with this teacher, and the other things that have happened. First off, we've heard of other things from parents that are serious, and I don't want to get into the details because I'm trying to be careful here too, because I don't want to say stuff that could come back and undo some of the work that we're trying to do here. But this teacher has basically been a problem for my daughter on more than one occasion. So I think that right now it's a big bag of maybes, and we'll see. We'll see. That was a big step, though. That the principal reaching out to us and giving us information was the thing we've been waiting for.
All right.
TikTok time?
Yeah,
should we talk about trees first?
We could do the tree. Oh, yeah, we didn't actually talk about that one. So let's bring that up real quick. And it is the name of the the episode or the live stream. So let's go through that. Excuse me, just got to pull that up, which is right. Cutting down trees, good. That's that.
Could cutting down trees actually help the climate? Researchers have a crazy big idea to cut down trees in northern forests, float them down rivers to the Arctic Ocean, and let them sink to the depths where they would store the carbon in them away. The boreal forest that spans the top of the northern hemisphere is the biggest on Earth, and it holds 1 trillion tons of carbon in its wood and soils. But wildfires are getting more frequent and more intense, and releasing more of that carbon into the atmosphere. These researchers previously found that wood in cold alpine lakes had lasted 8,000 years without decomposing or releasing carbon into the atmosphere. They also noticed that 6 major rivers in Russia, Canada, and the United States carry millions of tons of driftwood each year into the Arctic Ocean. They estimate that if we logged 30,000 square kilometers along each of these 6 rivers, put the wood on the ice to wait for the spring thaw, then floated it out to the Arctic Ocean, and then replanted these logged areas, it could absorb 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere each year. Companies have already been trying to bury wood, turn it into charcoal, or even sink it into the deep sea and then sell carbon credits. But there are a lot of things that could go wrong with this idea. If too much wood goes down a river at once, it could act like a scouring brush, tearing out plants and animals. Dead trees could get jammed in tributaries and cause flooding, which would unleash microbes to emit methane into the atmosphere, or thaw permafrost, which also stores carbon. Driftwood that gets frozen in ice can be carried as far south as the Faroe Islands, which means that some of this wood could end up somewhere where it would eventually decompose. Yeah. And then why have you cut down all these trees that could potentially live hundreds of years? But some scientists say this is worth further research because something like this may have happened 56 million years ago when Earth was in a hothouse period. A rush of wood into the Arctic Ocean may have helped cool the climate. Could cutting down trees...
Yeah, so
it's interesting.
It's a valid idea, but you do have to do a lot of calculations, though. So the idea of using trees to store carbon is fine, and there's a couple of ways to do that. One is just to have more trees, right? So if you increase the total number of trees in the world, then the total mass of trees is storing more carbon. But then once you get to a certain point where then you reach an equilibrium point, right? Where then the new carbon you're storing in trees that are growing is equaling the amount of carbon that's being released by trees rotting or burning.
Yeah.
So that's why this idea of sequestering carbon in trees you could either bury the trees, but this might be a lot cheaper than burying trees. You just sink them in the Arctic Ocean. That's fine. A couple of things though. So one is they said it would store. Of course, it's not just like the cutting the trees is not the part that sequesters the carbon. It's the planting new trees, right? You're basically just clearing the way for new trees without releasing the carbon from the old trees by burying it. And so, how they say 1 billion tons of carbon per year, but right now we're releasing 41 billion tons per year. So it's not like it's not nothing, 1 out of 41 billion. It doesn't mean we don't have to do everything else that we have to do to reduce
one of the many things.
But if we do, getting down to near net zero is a lot easier than to fully to net zero. Like if we can get down to single digits of billions of tons of carbon released every year, then things like this become much more significant, right? Because if you're sequestering 1 or 2 billion tons of carbon, then that can make a difference.
Steve, is it? I never even heard about this, but can't we take the trees and change them chemically so the carbon is no longer carbon?
What do you mean?
Like this carbon exists because
you can change carbon into not carbon, which short of nuclear processes. But you mean like not carbon dioxide?
No. I'm all right. So you did answer the question. Like this carbon that we have now, we created carbon.
We released. No, we didn't create carbon. We released it from historic stores under the ground.
Which was the oil and things like that.
We take coal and oil and gas out of the ground where it was sequestered.
Yeah, and stored.
And so we're releasing previously sequestered carbon into the environment. Now it's in the carbon cycle.
Okay, so there was a certain amount of carbon that was on the planet, and it does that amount doesn't change.
Well, it does when new stuff hits the Earth, but that's not that significant.
But the terrestrial carbon isn't
Basically.
created or destroyed anymore.
Yeah, so the thing that's important is the carbon cycle,
Yeah.
right? It's the carbon that is actively being circulated as carbon dioxide, getting in the soil, getting in trees, blah, 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 right? That's the carbon cycle. Because at some point that carbon's in the atmosphere and in the ocean. It acidifies the ocean if you have carbon dioxide there, and it obviously you have the greenhouse effect when it's in the air.
Yeah.
So, but there's lots of carbon in other places in the world that aren't in the environment,
Yep.
right? The environmental carbon cycle.
Right.
And historically that can change over time. When a volcano erupts, it's bringing deep carbon and then releasing it into the atmosphere, right? So that's releasing it from a deep, sequestered location into the carbon cycle in the atmosphere. We've been doing that industrially by burning fossil fuels. We're literally digging up sequestered carbon and then releasing that, adding to the net carbon that's in the cycle, that's in the environment, in the water,
Right.
in
Yep.
the atmosphere. So we do want to find ways of putting it back, right? Of taking our carbon out of the cycle and sequestering it in a form that will last for hundreds, if not thousands of years. That's what they're talking about.
Yeah, that
And
makes perfect sense.
we're going to need to do some of that, right? Even if we just reduce our release of new carbon, we still have all this carbon that we've
That still needs to
cumulative
be
that we've
removed.
added to.
And it's not going to come
the
from us
environment.
scrubbing the air, right? Like that's
That's just reducing the amount that's getting released,
yeah.
right?
But what about facilities like a terraforming kind of facility that is removing carbon from the
Yeah,
atmosphere?
we're
then
working on
sequestering
it.
it? Yeah, man,
We're
that's-
working on it. There are plenty of researchers are trying to develop commercially scalable carbon sequestration, right?
And what could we do with the carbon? Like, is it a material that could be built out of?
Yeah,
Like,
so
Yeah,
carbon could be
damn,
very
yeah.
right, Bob?
Oh yeah.
there's sort of two aspects to carbon sequestration. One is how are you pulling it out of the atmosphere to begin with? Trees pull carbon out of the atmosphere. That's why they are a natural way to sequester carbon. They just don't do it that fast, But so
And it's easily released from them.
So we need a way to get a lot of carbon out of the atmosphere into a solid form that doesn't cost more energy, right, than it's worth. So if we're releasing more carbon to provide the
Right,
energy
right.
to do the process, it's not valuable. And also this is the big problem. We could do it, but not scalable, not on a size that's going to make a difference, right?
Yeah, there's
Like again, if we're not taking billions of tons per year out of the atmosphere, it's
Yeah.
a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
So that's a problem. And then the second question is, what do we do with the carbon once we get it out of the atmosphere? And that is probably not the bigger part of the problem. We could use it to make fuel. We could use it to make high energy chemicals that could replace other processes that are more energy intensive or release
Right.
into the atmosphere. We can make carbon nanofibers out of it and throw it in cement or whatever. That'd be nice. Or we could just make it into whatever blocks of graphite and bury them under the ground or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's cool. I like the idea. Of
Yeah.
course, the experts are going to, figure all the details out. Like, what would impact would it have at the
Yeah.
bottom of the ocean? About the critters that live down there.
I mean, it would take a lot of study, and it'd be a massive effort.
Like maybe
and-
they have an oxygen problem down there, but they want carbon, and we can just trade with them. Wouldn't that be nice?
Right. I mean, the fantasy is you have a number of factories set up around the planet. They just filter. You have a turbine that takes in air. They scrub the carbon dioxide from the air, and then they use it to build carbon nanofibers out of it. And they build stuff out of that, and then they sort of squirt out.
carbon printers that print stuff from all that carbon.
Just make stuff that's going to be used for hundreds of years or whatever.
Yeah, maybe we
last
could
for
use
hundreds of years.
Maybe we could use carbon to 3D print buildings and stuff.
Yeah, and then power it with a fusion reactor.
Yeah, there you
sure.
go.
Love it.
That would be nice. But we just don't have the technology to do that right now.
Yeah.
And we don't know if and when we're going to get it, right? It's not the kind of thing we can count on. So for now, trees are actually cutting edge technology
Right.
for sequestering carbon. The problem is
Biotech,
they
baby.
rot. So that's the thing. We have to bury them in some way. We got to get rid of them somehow.
Well, I how like Venice is built on
Yes.
stilts
yeah.
of wood, and
Millions
that wood
and
when
millions.
when it's below the water level, bacteria really doesn't affect the wood, it doesn't decompose the wood, which stops the release. So I think that sinking them would
Right,
would
and
do
also
it,
get,
right?
they also get mineralized, so they're not going anywhere. It's
Yeah.
it's amazing when you're in Venice thinking, yeah, there's like millions of pieces of wood, timber down there that they just kind of hammered it in, right? I mean, it was amazing until they hit this very tough clay layer. So that's what's really supporting all of Venice right now.
Somebody said make carbonara.
Yeah, oh, love it,
Carbonara.
touche,
Boom.
love it.
Very good. I like that a lot.
Yeah, but then Jay will eat it, then he'd fart,
it
and that
out.
has methane, you know.
Yeah, but then
Yeah.
I could put a bag over my ass. I don't know. We'll figure something out.
Very
Float
big
away.
bag.
All right. What time is it? 1:33. All right. We could do the AIDS one if you want to do that one, or we could move on to TikToks. What are you guys?
Let's do
in the mood
TikToks.
for?
Yeah.
All right. We'll get on to the TikToks. So we have a couple TikToks. 1, 2, 3. I mean, did you guys want to do a TikTok? Or
No,
what?
no. If this is Steve's time, Bob and I will go. I
Yeah.
actually could get some work done.
Oh, okay. Steve's TikToks, not our TikTok.
Yeah, that's
Oh, do you have a TikTok that you want
No,
to talk about?
just the general discussion that we do every Wednesday.
Yeah.
We-
Yeah.
Was there
I mean,
one in particular that you wanted to talk about? We could do that.
No, they were all wacky.
Yeah, there was
They're all
one
whack,
that
huh?
I saved you from that was so insane. I was like, I can't send this to you. It was otherworldly.
All right, so have a great TikTok moment here, guys.
Thank you so much.
Bob and I will get to work.
Good luck.
I gotta eat something.
All right, let's play some hold music while we're waiting for me to set up this.
Boy.
Or maybe no hold music. It's the Google Drive
You guys
expire.
Voyager all the way to the end?
Yeah,
It was good. I just watched the last episode today.
the last ones were good. That
Yeah.
was
Google
Last season was
Drive.
good.
Hello.
so it's good Borg stuff on that
Yeah.
series. But among the better than any
What
other
they
show.
should do
except-
is put out a series that picks up
My Stream
now,
Deck
like
died?
25 years after the end of Voyager.
Why
you know
have
what
you
I mean?
died, Stream Deck?
That's when
Sorry.
you should be setting the next
Just
episode.
imagine there was
Next
music
series.
playing here.
Well,
everybody.
I would have been happy if they did it.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. That's what I mean. Which is basically the same thing. It's like
There we
as
go.
much time has passed in
Now.
reality as it on the show.
Tickety tock. Bye
Talkity tick.
bye.
Why isn't it talk tick? There's a name for that. When you have any combination of words like ping pong, tic tac, you always have the how do you characterize those vowels, like the short and long vowel or whatever? You always have. It's always
Phonemes? I mean, like, not phonemes. What do you mean? Oh, like a.
there's different kinds of vowels are like the like I's are short and the O's and the A's. So you always have E and I first and O and A second in any combination like that. Because it sounds weird if you say it the other way.
Tuck, tick,
Talk tick,
tick, tock.
you know,
You're right.
tic tac, ping pong, knick knack, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
They all
That
follow
would-
that same pattern. There's a name for it. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head.
Is it just how our mouths are shaped that we're not used to that?
Yeah,
like,
closed and open. It could be that.
epiglottal?
Short and long.
All right. Let's go back to this. So we're not gonna look at that one. We're gonna look at that one. We're gonna look at this
Flip
one.
flop.
This
Zigzag.
zigzag.
All right, this fucking
This
guy.
fucking guy. All right. There's so many of these guys. All right. So we got here. Bring that music up. This is going. Full screen that.
Dropkick doesn't follow the same pattern because it's two words. It's not the
Drop
same word with different vowels anyway. It's not cock kick or drop drip.
Drop, drip, drip, drip. Dip,
Drip
tap.
drop. There is drip drop
That's
though,
true.
right?
Drip drop.
Wishy washy. Yep. Bippity boppity boo.
Go through all of them.
Don't get me started.
Send
Who
them
started
in.
this?
Send them in chat to info@theskepticsguide.org. All right. That'll be a new Who's That Noisy. Just us repeating that. All right. Here we go. Stand by.
This lady shuts this airplane door. Now, do you see how heavy duty that is? How it has to vacuum seal so that everyone's safe? Now watch how this astronaut shuts this extremely advanced space hatch. Yeah, while he's in outer space, he's using that to protect him from the radiation, the extreme temperature differences. Okay,
Whatever, dude. Have you noticed how the boots don't even match the footprints on the moon? And how sometimes the astronauts actually forget to put their shoes on the right way? So if they're so smart, and only the strongest, smartest human beings on Earth can go to space, then how can't they put their shoes on the right way? And how is the sun's light hitting the moon from two completely different angles in this photo? You know, the Red Hot Chili Peppers might have been right in that song, Californication, talking about how, you know, Hollywood may have taken part in the moon landing. I mean, seriously, does it really look like they're doing anything important up there? They're just like banging metal around and they're like, oh, look at me, I'm in space. They're in a bathtub in Austin, Texas. But of course, this video was for entertainment purposes only.
We need to invent a new term for people like this. This level of aggressive ignorance, right? Like active ignorance. This is not just passive ignorance. You're going out of your way to say things that are easily disprovable, that are just, you know, blatantly stupid. So we could take these one at a time. Like everything he says is just idiotic. So do you really think NASA's trying to convince the world that that flimsy covering is a space hatch? Is that what you think is happening? That some guy at NASA is like, all right, we're faking being in orbit, and we're going to try to prove to people that we're in orbit by having this cloth flap be the space hatch between breathable air, you know, 1 atmosphere, and hard vacuum. I mean, come on, that's idiotic. Of course not. That's not the external hatch. That is just a cover. That's just like a shade. That's to prevent sunlight from directly hitting the actual hatch. As NASA themselves have clarified, that hatch, which goes to, you know, the chamber that you go into, right, to get outside the vehicle, it opens inward. And the reason why it opens inward is because when it's pressurized, it becomes impossible to open the door, right? Planes do this as well. Many planes are designed so that, not all planes, but many planes, if you look in their doors open inward so that when the cabin is pressurized and the pressure outside is lower, like you couldn't physically open the door. The pressure inside pushes the door shut. Same thing on the ISS. That external hatch actually opens inward, and then they have just that cover that you're seeing there is just to protect it from like sunlight. That is not the actual hatch. I mean, come on. The boot thing. So when you're talking about the like, oh look, their boots don't have the same treads as the footprints on the moon. That's because those aren't the boots they use to walk on the moon, right? Do you think spacesuits are the same for a spacewalk as walking on the moon? They're completely different spacesuits. You know, being on the moon is a completely different environment than being on an EVA, right, floating outside of the space station or the shuttle or whatever. The big problem with being on the moon is all of the moon dust, right? It's very sharp and gritty, and so they really have to design these suits to be able to hold up to that. The suits that were used during the Apollo era, those were one-offs. Those suits didn't survive beyond a single mission. They could not be reused. They were destroyed basically by the moon dust of that mission. They were designed to last long enough to get through the mission, and that's just about it. What you're seeing on those treads, those are actually boot covers. So before they would go outside of the lander to go onto the moon, they actually put separate boot covers onto their boots, made for walking in moon dust, right, on that sharp, gritty, moon dust. And so and you know what they did with those boot covers? They left them on the moon because every ounce of weight was critical. They didn't bring anything back from the moon. They didn't absolutely have to. They left bags of their feces on the moon. They left their boot covers on the moon. So if you go to the Smithsonian and you see, this is Neil Armstrong's boots that he had on the moon, those are the boots he was wearing on his feet, but they're not the boot covers. Those were left on the moon. He's trying to make a point about one astronaut who put these special boots on backwards. Yeah, the guy did do that. NASA makes relentless fun of him. If you read about it, they have a blown up picture of it like outside the guy's office. It's a funny thing that happened. It's not like it's, you're putting on your own shoes or you're putting on your own boots. When you have somebody helping you getting into this, they at some point when they were putting on the EVA boots, they made a mistake this one time and put them on backwards. It doesn't mean that they're not smart, capable people. Shit like that happens, right? And it's a joke even in NASA. They're not hiding it. It happened. It's funny. It doesn't mean that they faked, all of space is faked. I mean, come on, get real. And then he ends with a 40-year-old, 30-year-old conspiracy theory about the shadows on the moon. I mean, come on, this has been out. So this again proves that you're not intellectually honest, right? If you were intellectually honest and even slightly rigorous, you would look up, well, what does NASA, what do the experts, what do scientists say about the fact that the shadows don't appear to be facing in the same direction? Because that seems like, this person can't make sense of it. A lot of people can't make sense of that. Well, it's because, very simply, the ground that the thing's casting the shadows on is not perfectly flat. If you're on, if there's different angles to the ground that it's on, the shadows will be facing in different directions. That's it. It's not perfectly flat ground. In some cases, the not that picture that was shown, but there are other times when they're pointing at pictures where it's just a perspective thing. It's like the shadows are all fine, but you could, from a certain angle, it could look as if they're not lining up properly. But mostly it's because the surface of the moon is not flat where the objects that are casting the shadow are. That's it. Again, if you had the slightest bit of true curiosity, true skepticism, you would investigate this before making a stupid video where you're showing how ignorant you are of provable facts.
Alrighty. Space. I don't know. All right.
Flirts are the dumbest people on the planet.
Yeah, it's pretty.
They are pushing the envelope of human stupidity. They really are.
Yeah, it's wacky. All right, so let's move on to this fucking guy. All right, stand by. We got this. That's unmuted. Here we go.
I looked it up and I wanted to know, what all viruses does medical science know that its construct, its design, targets nicotine receptors? Alex, did you know that rabies is published and known by science to be cured with nicotine because it targets nicotine receptors? Also, HIV
Okay.
is also cured with nicotine.
What?
Did you know that schizophrenia is cured with nicotine?
Oh, no, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, right? All these I put in the book, by the way. They're all in there. I'll show you all the research studies. I didn't prove this. All the scientists did. I just collected it and gave it to you because it's so mind-blowing and amazing. I looked it up and I wanted to know, what all viruses does
Hey, recycle. I don't know if this guy believes anything that he's saying. It's so ridiculous. Let's assume he does believe it. He clearly has no idea what he's talking about. I've seen lots of his videos where he has, a semi-point, like there is a factoid in there somewhere, but he has no idea how to put it into any context. So let's go through what he's saying. To back up a little bit, yes, there is a nicotine receptor in the body. For any drug, like most drugs work by binding to a receptor. And they may activate the receptor, they may partially activate the receptor, they may block or inhibit the receptor. That's what we call agonists if they activate it, and antagonists if they block it, or there could be partial agonists, etc. And that's often how drugs are classified, by what receptor are they interacting with and what are they doing to it. And then you have, of course, whatever the downstream effects of activating or blocking that receptor are. So there is a nicotine receptor, nicotinic receptor as we call it, is a acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter. One of the receptors that acetylcholine binds to is the nicotinic receptor. There's also the muscarinic receptor, and they do different things and they're distributed in different places with different functions. And yes, nicotine does bind to the nicotinic receptor. That's why it has that. That's why the receptor has that name, right? It's defined by what binds to it. But let's go through what he's claiming there. So to show you how he sort of distorts reality with this little partial sort of piece of information. Schizophrenia. schizophrenics have a lower density of nicotinic receptors than healthy controls, right? Exactly what this is doing is not clear, but it is part of the disease, right? They have a lower density of nicotinic receptors. And it has been observed that smoking rates among schizophrenics is higher than the background population. And the reason for this is because it is believed that people who have schizophrenia, many people with schizophrenia, are self-medicating with nicotine because it does relieve some of their symptoms, mainly their sensory perception, their auditory and visual sensory perception problems, and some of their memory issues. They are partially treated, with nicotine. So they learned just from trial and error that they feel a little bit better, when they smoke. And so they smoke to self-medicate. They don't know they're doing this, but they are self-medicating with nicotine because it makes some of their symptoms slightly less. That's not the same thing as a cure for schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is not cured with nicotine. There's some of the symptoms are partially treated with nicotine. Two very different things. If you can't get that distinction correct, that indicates you have no idea what you're talking about. What about HIV? He said HIV is cured. So what does he think that anything that nicotine binds to, it cures whatever disease it's associated with? That's ridiculous. In fact, nicotine makes HIV worse, right? It actually makes it more likely, it makes it easier for the virus to spread, to replicate. It actually also accelerates the neurological damage that could sometimes happen in people who have chronic HIV infection. So it's the opposite of a cure. It's not even a treatment. It actually exacerbates HIV. So we got that completely wrong. So don't listen to anything this guy, in my opinion, you shouldn't listen to anything this guy has to say. Clearly he doesn't truly understand anything. He's not an actual expert. He's throwing out, these claims based upon bits of information, but he completely misinterprets their implications. And it sometimes gets the ultimate conclusion completely wrong. So just not a reliable source of information.
All right, cool. All right, let's see.
Vaccine is neither a treatment nor a cure. It is a prevention, right? So some medical interventions are prevention. Some are mitigate disease. Some are symptomatic. Some modify the disease. So they may not cure it, but they might they're what we call disease modifying, meaning they might slow the progression or reduce the probability of getting some of the negative effects of it. And some are a cure. So there's multiple different ways to classify interventions. Vaccines are a preventive treatment. They're preventing something before it happens. They're not treating it after it happens.
All right, let's see. Let's go to this one.
Another good example of a question that can't be answered as asked because it's based upon misconceptions.
Yeah, it's true. All right, so let's go. All right, stand by.
Condom is literally called a prophylactic because it is prophylaxis, which is the technical term for a preventive intervention.
Just want to show a quick example of one of the ways that subliminal messaging works. I'm going to play two sounds, and after you hear the second sound, you'll never be able to hear the first sound the same way again. This sound will actually change the way you hear something permanently. Alright, so here's the first sound. So now I'm going to play the second audio, and after hearing it, you won't be able to hear the first one the same way ever again.
It was a sunny day and the children were going to the park.
Now, this is just a minor example of how predictive your brain is. Your own thoughts are constantly being persuaded by predictive programming. Predictive programming and programming you to normalize things through subliminal messaging. And they do this through music, TV shows, and movies, and sounds that you hear on these apps. Certain sounds that we either willingly or are forced to listen to can alter your brain and the way your thought process works. Your mind is constantly attempting to predict things. But what happens when these predictions are forced into your mind and just become programming? So there's
actually an interesting neurological phenomenon going on here. It's called priming or audio priming. What's with the hood, by the way? That's kind of weird. Anyway, so yes, if you you can play a sound, and there's lots of examples of this. Sometimes it could be another language, or it could be just random noise like that. It could be literally white noise, background noise, etc. Anything where there's enough sort of details in there that your brain can try to make sense out of it. Now we have dedicated cortex, right? There's parts of our brain that are dedicated to translating sounds into words. And what the brain does is it makes the best fit that it can in that translation. And sometimes, and whatever it decides, like if your brain makes the closest match it can to a phoneme, it says like that was a B, right? Somebody saying ba, and it actually uses both visual and auditory information sometimes to make that call. It decides that the closest fit is ba. That's what you actually hear. That's what you hear. That's not just what you think you hear, it's what you hear. The brain translates that into a language phoneme, right? That's also partly why, like, when you learn a language, you learn a certain number of phonemes that go with that language. And then if you try to learn another language that has phonemes that don't exist in your native language, you can't even hear them. You can't hear the distinction that native speakers are making between two similar phonemes because their brains can make them because they learned it. Your brain can't make the distinction. That's why you will have an accent, right? Or you will mispronounce certain things. So anyway, this is a great example of that where you have essentially sort of, it sounds like random noise. Some people may hear the words without the priming, but for most of us, and I certainly didn't hear it until I was primed, then you hear the sentence that can match up with that. And then when you hear the random noise again, now your brain, primed by hearing the actual words, will hear those words in the random noise, right? And so it will make that closest match because it's been primed to do that. You can also do it visually. If you have, and we do this on stage for demonstrations all the time, where you have something playing that's either not English, not your native language, or it's noise or whatever, and then you have words underneath it, and so you're priming them by having the subtitles, and then you hear whatever it is you're reading because now your brain is primed to hear that. So it's an interesting neurological phenomenon. It demonstrates how our brains construct your experience, right? Your brain interprets what you see, it interprets what you hear, it makes the best matches it can, it makes assumptions about distance and size and everything and shading and all that stuff to create your seamless subjective experience. It doesn't always get it right. That's why we mishear people all the time, or you're listening to lyrics. How many people have you experienced where a friend of yours, or maybe you're singing along to a song and you're saying the lyrics wrong because you heard, that's the way your brain heard them, and then once you think that's what they're saying, that's what you hear, and you're blissfully unaware that you're completely misstating the lyrics. So that's what's going on here. Now this guy's trying to reframe this as a subliminal form of communication, but that's subliminal information. That's a completely different phenomenon. These are not the same thing. There really is no evidence that subliminal messaging works. Like that messaging that's below your conscious awareness is somehow programming your brain or getting you to believe things or whatever. That's kind of all BS. Remember the urban legend about like the ads in movie theaters where they had naked women and messages and whatever all subliminally placed in there. It's not true. That's not happening. I think there was one incident 50 years ago, where a company did it as an experiment or whatever. It didn't have any effect. And so, the subliminal programming or messaging is not a real thing. Audio priming is a real thing, and it's a good example of how our brains construct our perceptual experiences.
All right, we did
it.
Audio priming.
Audio priming.
Yeah. All right.
What is with the hood? What's with that hood? Is that just an affect for the videos?
I think this is just his style of like whatever.
Is that what the kids are wearing these days?
Kids are doing it up to the chin hood style. No, this guy is definitely like probably 38. So I don't know if the kids, but also he did that for entertainment purposes only. I think you saw that.
Fuck
probably
him.
because of the tech. They all do that.
I know.
That's their
It's
little
meaningless.
shtick. So whatever.
Predictive
Anyway.
of nothing.
Predictive of nothing, exactly. All right, well, that's it for this week. If you want to support the SGU, remember to go to patreon.com/skepticsguide. Listen to the upcoming episode coming out this Saturday, actually this Friday, early. For
If you're for patrons, it comes out on Friday, and for the Gen Pop, Saturday, usually around 10 a.m.
That's right. We recorded a bunch of political reality podcasts. Or
got 2 more in the can yesterday.
One
Very
is
nice.
coming out today.
What's the one coming out today?
Fascism.
On fascism. That's to the general population
Yeah,
too.
that's right. It's public. So in case people were misunderstood, every other week is behind the paywall.
Right.
So
It's for
it's the
patrons.
way we have it right now is it's odd even. So even is public, odd is behind the paywall, or for patrons. Like I said, we're going to get the YouTube membership up and running as soon as possible. It's just like you have to hit a certain milestone to get that to go and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so that's it. I think that's it. So we also have shows coming up. There's a Madison, Wisconsin show for the extravaganza and a private show, which you should come out to, which is very cool.
And then we have L.A., Sydney, Christchurch, New Zealand.
That's right. We don't have the LA ones out yet, but we will put those up soon.
We're doing them. We're still booking the venue.
Just so you guys know, Nauticon also is in Australia. If you haven't heard us say this over and over, but those tickets are actually on sale. So if you would like to come to Sydney, Australia.
If you haven't been to Sydney, go to Sydney. It's
Go
great.
to Sydney. And then we're going to be going also to New Zealand, and there's another one. We don't have those tickets out yet, but they will happen. So there's that. Got to start listening to PR. It is a separate Patreon for PR, just in case. The structure is different. We have a different editor, all that kind of stuff, so we can't combine them. So it is a different Patreon. And there's some other stuff we'll be launching too, but also on YouTube and on all podcast apps of your choice, including Audible, which I added recently. I guess I didn't add automatically.
Someone asked if retirement is treating me well.
Yeah.
Very well, thank
Very
you.
well.
I'm loving it. Oh, it's great having one job instead of 2 is fantastic. Yeah. The best is that I don't have to set an alarm in the morning.
Oh my God.
I wake up when I'm ready to wake up.
That's pretty
So
awesome.
I'm better. My sleep is definitely improved.
So it's time to do another podcast. And
Yes.
AQ6 and SG.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're doing more work.
Doing more work.
Absolutely.
That's it. All right.
My brain does not like being awakened by a loud noise.
I mean, God. There's got to be a study about that being bad, right?
There is.
Oh,
There's research into it. It's not good to wake to an alarm. It's also don't snooze. Like hitting the snooze and sleeping for 20 more minutes is just set the alarm. If you have to set an alarm for the last possible moment you can get up, and then get up then. Yeah. Snoozing is bad. It's not good for your sleep. But for me, it always seems like that alarm hits just when I'm like in that worst stage of sleep, and that's like, oh God. Got to drag myself out of it.
Looking healthy and not as pale. It's the color correction. We just changed it. We just upped the saturation. He's fine. No, I'm just kidding. He does. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. See you next time.
Bye-bye.